With the release of Creed 3, the ninth film in the Creed Rocky franchise, it's finally time to stop and rank all 9 films in this now 50-year-old franchise. My name is Max Rader. Welcome back to a brand new ranking video here on Max Talks Movies. If you're new to the channel, I do movie reviews. I've already done a Creed 3 review this past Friday, as well as other TV show reviews, these types of rankings, and a box office breakdown show every week. So please subscribe, ring the bell. If you're new to the channel, comment down below what are your ranking of the nine Rocky / Creed films. If you want to rank them separately, you can as well. I want to know your thoughts, and because I think this is one of the most fun movie franchises to talk about because everyone has a different relationship with it, which means most people just have totally different rankings for these movies based on their nostalgia or where they grew up. Cannot wait to hear you guys' thoughts down below. Also, please like the video, guys, the thumbs up button if you're new to the channel. So this is gonna be 9. I am gonna go kind of, I guess, spoilers on this franchise, but it's a ranking video, so I'm gonna talk about this franchise. Again, for background information, I'm from Philadelphia, currently go to school in Philadelphia. So this is a franchise that's kind of, again, if you're not familiar, again, the Rocky films do take place in Philadelphia. They're a franchise that definitely means a lot to me. I have a lot of nostalgia for really most of the films in this ranking. And this is a very personal list. Again, this is not the right list. This is literally just the Max Dinnenberg version of the Rocky franchise. I get a lot of nice arguments with people about it because I've met people who grew up with these films, people who maybe haven't seen the films before. So I've had a lot of different variety of people talk about this franchise. But so this is my personal ranking of the 9 films in this franchise. Easily at number 9, though, is one that everyone thinks is the worst in this franchise, and that is easily Rocky 5, which a lot of people would have thought at the time really did kill this franchise for a long time. Again, Rocky 5 came out in 1990. And we didn't get Rocky Balboa until 2006. So this took at least a 15-year length in between films, and it really was one of the killers of the franchise at the time. Again, all the pieces I think were right. I don't love the direction of this franchise. Again, Rocky becomes an American hero after the events of Rocky 4, like a Cold War American hero. And then you go from that to he's homeless again. He's back in Philadelphia. He's on the street. And it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The Tommy Gunn aspect of the movie just was never interesting for me. I think this is it really, when you watch especially the first Creed film, you can see what this type of plot line is done in the right way. Rocky kind of being a protege. And because you know and love Rocky, you know right away that Tommy Gunn is the wrong person to be helping out in this situation. They kind of have long excuses for why this movie really needs to happen, with having Paulie be in control of all of Rocky's money. And of course that goes wrong. And also I know Sage Stallone in real life, I think, passed away. The Rocky son relationship was done really poorly in this movie, and then they did a great job with that in Rocky Balboa. So for me, this is the one that I just never want to rewatch ever. I think actually all the other films, yes, all of the other films on this list I rewatch a lot, but this one in particular I just never want to rewatch. For me, just easily, I think there's a huge difference between this and the rest of the 8 films, which I think I have fun with all 8 films remaining on this list. So this is where the controversial stuff will begin. Again, this is my ranking. Starting at number 8 for me, I guess going on to number 8, is Rocky 4. Now, for a lot of people, this might be their favorite film of the franchise. And again, I'm not an 80s kid, obviously. I don't have that nostalgia for Rocky 4 like other people. Again, it's a fun, turn your brain off film, but to put it for me in the top echelon of this franchise, it's just never been for me. For me, this is too much of it's more of a music video than it is a movie to me. Now, yes, there's a lot of iconic stuff happens in this movie that really sets up things down the line, with obviously Drago being the villain, killing Apollo in the first act of the movie. All the training montages, for me, it was just overload. Most Rocky films, you get that one kind of big training montage. This movie has like 5 or 6 training montages that goes on. In fact, for me, it's just not that fun to watch training montages when you want to see a Rocky movie, in my opinion. You want to see like 1 or 2, but for the whole movie to be kind of a music video, it's kind of my biggest miss. And I do think I love the opening of this movie with Rocky kind of being retired, Apollo doing this exhibition match. I think it's a great setup for the movie, but the first act tonally is so off from the rest of the movie. I mean, the kickoff of the movie is, we're joking around, we're having fun, and then Apollo like dies in the ring. And then the rest of the movie is like a music video. I mean, one of the key characters of the first 3 films is killed. And I do feel like we do move off really quickly into cheesiness, into cartoonish territory way too quickly after a pretty serious death just happened. The whole Cold War of it, I understand. Again, this is a fun, turn your brain off. You want to have fun for 2 hours and just have a blast. Again, I have fun with Rocky 4, but to put this at the top echelon of this franchise, I just can never do it. Coming in number 7 for me is Rocky 3. This is a lot of fun. I think as a kid probably was my favorite, was Rocky 3. This is definitely the Rocky that I actually like a lot in this film. Again, tons of fun with a very cartoonish kind of wrestling villains with Hulk Hogan in the opening fight and then having Mr. T throughout the entire film. Very similar to Rocky 4. We have a pretty big emotional moment in the beginning of the movie with Mickey dying at the beginning of the movie, setting up for Rocky to lose to Clubber Lang to set up the ending fight. And again, I think the best part of this movie, which really holds us well above the previous 2 films, is the Apollo-Rocky dynamic in this movie. It's very iconic. Apollo taking the time to train him in Los Angeles, the beach scene. There's so many iconic, again, you get the Rocky statue in this movie, but it is too quick of a turnaround. And I don't feel it's as personal of a rivalry between Clubber Lang and Rocky as it thinks. I think the personal rivalry that I get in Creed 3 does it a lot better than the rivalry. Again, Mr. T is a very cartoonish villain, and he feels like a threat from a physique point of view, but there's kind of no character to Clubber Lang. He's just kind of like the next challenger that wants to beat Rocky. There really isn't a lot of depth to that character. And the idea of Rocky trying to come out of retirement because he died right before that one fight, I don't think is as personal as I think the movie thinks it is. That's kind of been one thing holding it back. There's a lot of iconic moments, but it just isn't as personal of a matchup as I think the movie really feels it is. I like the movie. Again, it's tons of fun. It's for me overly cheesy, but for me, the Apollo-Rocky relationship really takes the movie to the next level. At number 6 is Rocky Balboa, which really rejuvenated the franchise and really was supposed to be, again, ended the Rocky films on a really great note. Again, this movie came out in 2006, 16 years after the really bad reception for Rocky 5. Rocky's obviously in a different place, well into his late 50s as this movie took place. And I think it's a really great character piece for Rocky. Now, yes, I don't really tend to rewatch this a lot, probably the second least out of the whole franchise. But the story there and the fact that it's a lot more of a serious movie. Yes, there's cheesy elements, but it's very much a grounded movie of the right situation, actually, where Rocky should be at this age than what happened with Rocky's character in Rocky 5. I think the big thing holding this back from me, again, I wish Rocky had an opponent. Again, Tarver's, Dixon is a good enough opponent, but he literally has no character to him. He's not in the movie enough. I think if the movie had a bit more of an interesting villain going on, I guess, as you want to say, I think this movie, antagonist, as they say, I think this movie would have done a lot better. Milo Ventimiglia as Rocky's son is also great. And obviously, there's a lot of iconic line deliveries in this movie and dialogue from Stallone. Again, I really like this movie. I can't really get to love for it because, again, the boxing itself isn't great, and the antagonist isn't any special as well. But for me, this is a great way to really end those 6 Rocky films. Let's move into the top 5 Rocky films now of all time. And sitting at number 5 for me is Creed 2. I really like Creed 2. I loved it out of the theater. I like it slightly less than I did slightly when I came out of the theater. But I really like this movie a lot. It's obviously the thing that everyone wanted from this franchise with the Creed. If we could ever get, Adonis getting redemption for his dad fighting Drago's son. But easily the best part of this movie is the Drago storyline. These were characters that were the most cheesy, one-note characters in Rocky 4. I think Creed 2, really enhanced the Drago character and Rocky 4 as itself. Again, Rocky 4 for me is a giant joke. And I watched the movie, I had fun with it, but this movie really takes what happened at the end of that film really seriously. How Drago was kind of this put on this pedestal, and at the end, it was a great celebration for Rocky, but it kind of destroyed Drago's legacy as a person. His country kind of abandoned him. And I really like that story, and I'm very interested when they do that Drago spin-off movie, what they do to continue that storyline. But this is, again, a lot of good stuff here, obviously, from Rocky and Adonis going on here, and Bianca as well. But this really, really comes to me for the Dragos. They're great in this movie. And while I think the young Drago doesn't have as much to do as the other three characters, Dolph Lundgren does a great job in this movie. And I think also the boxing scenes itself. My biggest problem with the movie, which does kind of slightly move it down a bit from not getting higher than this and having Creed 3 over this, is I do think the movie is at times way too formulaic as Rocky 4. We get the fight between Adonis and Drago, and we know they're going to have to fight in Russia, just like Rocky 4. I think there's sometimes the formula gets a bit annoying in this movie, but overall, I think this is a great addition to the franchise. Getting to my number 4 movie, and that is going to be the newest edition, which is Creed 3. I love Creed 3. Way more than I thought. I wasn't expecting to love this movie when I was seeing the trailers. I was really excited, but what really makes this is both Michael B. Jordan as a director and Jonathan Majors' excellent performance. It's only one of the best performances that this franchise has ever had. I think this, and right up there with Apollo as the best antagonist that the franchise has ever had. The boxing scenes are awesome. You feel every punch in this movie. Michael B. Jordan really takes those scenes seriously, puts you in the ring, and Jonathan Majors feels like a threat. And the fact that he was in prison for 18 years, and I think this is the antagonist hero rivalry that I think this franchise has desperately needed. This franchise has been full of a hero in Rocky or Adonis who just has to face the next challenger for the world title. This is not just another world title match for Adonis Creed. This is fighting a former friend who they were in a situation together, and one person got put in prison for this mistake, and the other person got to live a whole life of boxing, live in a mansion, have a wife and kid, and be a success. And what happens when that guy comes out of prison, and what do you think he wants to do? He wants that person's life that he thinks stole his life. And I really appreciated that storyline. I think Jonathan Majors, there isn't as much as I wanted from a writing point of view with that character, but the performance really sells you what he went through in prison, what he's been thinking about for the last 18 years of his life in prison. And that's a really great character to me. I think the boxing scenes were great. The daughter relationship that Adonis has with his daughter is really wonderful as well. I'm not really going into spoilers. Again, this movie just came out on Friday, but what a blast of a movie. My kind of couple issues with the movie were, I do think there were times where people just had championship matches that just don't make any sense. I don't know how a person on the street could get put into the situation that the movie does in the second act of the movie. It just isn't very realistic. But my favorite thing about this movie, honestly, that it does go a bit bold. It doesn't really feel like any of the other films in this franchise. Is Stallone missed? Yes, but this movie does not need Stallone. And that's what I really liked about this movie, Liza. It felt like its own standalone movie. And I think it does make sense that this is really Adonis's franchise moving forward. Moving into number 3 is Rocky 2. Now, I love Rocky 2. I do see the issues with it the more I think about it in kind of the first 2 acts of the movie. And at times, my biggest problem with Rocky 2 that really holds it back from being like an A+ or in that top 2 echelon of the franchise is that it does feel like copy and paste the first movie, trying to really redo the first movie, doing the same train montage, the same fight, similarly shot. But this film is full of just iconic moment after iconic moment. I do think that the Adrian Rocky stuff, I think, is the best in this movie. I think Adrian kind of gets thrown to the woodshed, just being Rocky's support in the rest of the franchise after these first 2 films. But Talia Shire does a great job in this movie with Rocky, both in the first film and in this movie. And I love Apollo in this movie. The fact that everyone's kind of like, let's just move on. Rocky, you won your fight with Rocky. Let's just move on to bigger and better things. And Apollo's like, everyone's telling me that he won the fight. And I could have technically won the fight, but did I beat him? I didn't. I love that story with Apollo in this movie. And it leads to such a satisfying, predictable, but satisfying ending with Rocky with the world title. It's such an iconic, great movie to me. I know this movie actually gets more heat than I thought. I know a lot of people, when I watch videos of the ranking, puts this near the bottom of the franchise. For me, there's too many iconic and heartfelt, satisfying moments that for me, it gets all the way up to number 3. These two films for me are nearly like perfect sports films. So this has always been a tough one too for me, but Creed is number 2. This is probably the best sports movie since I've been alive. I never thought in my lifetime, because again, Rocky Balboa came out when I was 4. I definitely didn't see that in a movie theater. I never thought I would see a Rocky movie in a movie theater. And I was very skeptical because I had a lot of nostalgia at the time. I was 13 when I saw this movie, and I wasn't too excited because I was nervous this could really taint the franchise. But it definitely did not do that. But it's one of the best films of this franchise. Probably might be even the best film of this franchise. Ryan Coogler really reinvigorated a franchise that was gone again for over 10 years by bringing Michael B. Jordan as Adonis into the fray as the perfect stepping off point to move the franchise going. I think this is easily Stallone's best performance in this entire franchise. Obviously, he got nominated and things, but he was truly fantastic and probably should have won the Oscar that year. But there's so much, I think, greatness in this movie. It doesn't just feel like another Rocky film. It's a very personal relationship film that Rocky V was trying to be, that Creed really capitalized on. Ryan Coogler gave that really different flair to the direction and writing that Stallone, they needed a revamping. And Stallone being the writer and director, sometimes it got old. And I think with this movie having a completely different feel to it, with Adonis's backstory, meeting Rocky, it's all really great in this movie. I love also Bianca being the musician, having the hearing problems, and that relationship really developing as well. And Rocky also, the same time Rocky's fighting through cancer, he wants Adonis to fight through all these things and really live up to his Creed name and take that name with pride. And not forgetting about his past with his dad. I just love Creed 1. I rewatch it all the time. It's such a great movie. And it's now really set up a great side spin-off franchise for Rocky. But for me, nothing beats, obviously, the original Rocky film all the way back in 1976. As we are closing in on 47-year franchise this is. It's unbelievable. Near 50-year franchise this has been. It's such a great movie. It's probably one of the best sports films of all time. But again, these are great sports films, but it's so not about just the sport itself. It's about, again, the traditional underdog who is seen as just nothing. Again, this movie has so much underdog involvement. Again, Stallone was homeless at the time of shooting this movie. The producers, the studio just didn't want any part of him starring in it, directing it, writing it, whatever part of it was. And he pulled together one of the most iconic films in cinema history, in my opinion, with Rocky 1. Obviously, the running up the steps is all great. Also, a great character in Apollo Creed, who is such a perfect antagonist for this film. And also just a love story between Adrian and Rocky. Mickey being he's, for me, a top 3 character in this entire franchise. The fights are great, and the best part about this movie, which I've always thought was so bold about this movie, is that the true message of this movie is that it didn't matter if Rocky actually won this fight or not. It was great that he did in the second movie. It really is, but it was a lot more satisfying that Rocky went 12 rounds with Apollo Creed and earned his respect by the end of the movie. And, Rocky and Adrian in the ring together, and that was the point of the movie. The point of the movie was not for Rocky to beat Apollo Creed. I think that's kind of the fantasy that we kind of got in the second movie, which I think a lot of people why they don't really love the second movie. This is really one of the best endings, is that Rocky does win the fight. He goes 12 rounds. and our antagonist learns something new, which is to not, you can't take it. You do have to take everyone seriously here in the ring with, and he just didn't take Rocky that seriously. And being from Philadelphia, being that underdog blue chip type of city, I think a lot of people, including myself, really resonated with this character. And that's why for a lot of people, this is their favorite movie character of all time. So that's my 9-movie Rocky film franchise. I'm really happy to do this ranking. It's the first Creed film that I've been doing for this channel. So I wanted to do this ranking really badly. So that's my Rocky/Creed franchise ranking. What's yours in the comment section down below? If you have a big disagreement on me, what is that? Give me your reasons for it. Let's not just blab in some negativity. I want to have a nice, fruitful discussion with you guys about it. Like the video, comment down below. I already did my review of Creed 3 this past Friday, so you can check that out right here. With other than that, I'll see you guys soon.